Hello everyone, are you ready for another anime recap? Then subscribe right now to this Anime Plots YouTube channel and watch this full video. Did you subscribe? Okay, let's start the video.
The story begins with our main protagonist Baki, a mixed martial artist with a powerful aura that makes weak-willed people shiver just by being in his presence. He recently won a bloody underground tournament in which he competed. Tokugawa, the tournament's host, arrives at Baki's school to warn him that dangerous men are on their way to Tokyo. Tokugawa asks Baki if he understands the significance of what is about to happen as the 5 men travel to Tokyo. Tokugawa informs him that the 5 men are unquestionably combat fighters, and that they are all headed for Baki. He describes it as a full-fledged battle between skilled martial artists and ruthless assassins. The Tokyo police have learned of the 5 escaping convicts. They receive word that a police car has been smashed to pieces, and an eyewitness identifies Spec as the perpetrator. Spec confronts Baki, who heard he was Tokyo's strongest man. He greets him by shaking his hand before pounding him into the ground. Police arrive quickly and he allows himself to be arrested. Before being taken away, he kicks him in the face and begs him not to disappoint. Baki's father, Yujiro Hama, who is feared as the strongest man alive, watches a news broadcast about the arrival of the 5 escaped convicts with interest. Tokyo police are wary of Spec, and the chief demands triple the standard security for his transfer. However, in the bathroom, he meets Spec, who first offers him a Chinese bun before killing him and fleeing. In a dojo, Katsumi, the Shinshinkai karate school's successor, and Ritsu, a master of Chinese Kenpo, spar for Katsumi's students. Katsumi later says that he plans to incorporate Kenpo into his karate style, and the two appear to be evenly matched. A few moments later, they are interrupted by the arrival of Dorian, who is looking for Doppa Orochi, Katsumi's father and former Shinshinkai head. Dorian assaults Katsumi, who manages to deflect his first blow but is nearly strangled to death by his own belt. He manages to break free. He observes that if Katsumi is that good, Doppa may pose a challenge to him. As Dorian attempts to flee, Ritsu blocks his path and narrowly avoids a bullet-like strand of hair thrown at him. Dorian recognizes his skill after an initial skirmish. He drinks from a flask and spits fire at him before disappearing into thin air. Tokugawa approaches pro wrestler Yagiri about inviting his friend and judo master Tetoka to the upcoming tournament, but Tetoka is brutally beaten by a sneak attack from Sikorsky. When Yagiri later seeks vengeance, he too is beaten to a pulp. The escaped convicts arrive one by one at Tokugawa's underground arena. Baki and other fighters contacted by Tokugawa will soon arrive, and a decisive bloodbath is about to begin. Tokugawa chose 5 fighters to go against the escaped convicts: Doppa, the head of Shinshinkai; Hanayama, a Yakuza boss; Shibukawa, a jiu-jitsu master; Ritsu, a Chinese Kenpo master; and Baki himself. The rules are straightforward. There are no rules at any time or place, and anyone from either side may attack the other. Following that, Doppa and Dorian walk alongside each other, talking about the latter's attack on the dojo. They come across Ritsu, who is still enraged at Dorian and wishes to attack him. Doppa, on the other hand, outwits him by kicking Dorian in the face, bringing the tall American to his knees. Dorian responds with a fire breath, but Doppa clears it with a motion guard, earning Ritsu's admiration. Dorian's use of a nearly invisible metal wire causes the left Po's hand to be severed cleanly from his arm. Despite being mortally wounded at first, Doppa manages to stop the bleeding and strikes with the same injured arm. Meanwhile, Sikorsky is ambushed by Yagiri and his men, who are out for vengeance. They take him to a nearby gym and restrain him. Yagiri fires a gun at Sikorsky, unaware that he is merely pretending to be captured. Sikorsky survives thanks to a bulletproof vest and goes on to kill both of Yagiri's men. Yagiri, now fully aware of the disparity in power, prostrates himself and begs for mercy. However, Sikorsky labels him a coward for selfishly trying to protect himself rather than seeking vengeance for Tetoka. He bludgeons him with a barbell before suffocating him with a torrent of heavy weights. Meanwhile, Baki goes on a date with Kazue, his landlady's daughter and a romantic interest. They come across thugs who try to intimidate him, but eventually back off after sensing his intimidating aura. A speck lurks in the shadows as they walk home at dusk. Kazue inquires of Baki about the significance of their previous tournament kiss. He responds that it means she is the first girl he can trust, aside from his mother. As he kisses her again, a speck appears behind them, but Hanayama tackles him away. Hanayama strips down to his underwear after Speck sucker punches him, revealing a terrifying tattoo on his back. A speck shatters a bench on Hanayama, who takes it as if it were nothing. Speck throws away the scraps and takes a stance, claiming that his fists are far more lethal than any weapon. On cue, the Statue of Liberty that he has been punching repeatedly begins to crumble. As Marines and engineers rush to secure the statue with cables, they wonder what kind of monster could have done something like this. Speck unleashes his apnea rush, a technique in which he attacks non-stop for 5 minutes, leaving the opponent a bloody corpse. Hanayama unexpectedly manages to counterattack, stunning Speck. Hanayama begins to beat Speck to a pulp, asking him with each punch if he's had enough. Speck, who once boasted that his fists were more dangerous than any weapon, resorts to inserting explosive bullets into Hanayama's mouth. Even though his cheeks have been blown apart, the bullets fail to kill Hanayama. Hanayama electrocutes him by striking him into a street lamp. He brings him to the police, but Speck escapes, with only Police Sergeant Katahira as an eyewitness. Speck flips the car Hanayama is in and viciously assaults, and shoots him as he climbs out. Speck remarks that they are in a death match, and that nothing is off limits. Before the American can process what has just happened, he rips out a piece of Speck's arm. Hanayama rips a piece of his inner thigh from his body. Writhing in agony, Speck tries desperately to stop him with a finger stabbed in the ear, But even that is insufficient to stop a man's juggernaut. He crushes Speck in the throat, knocking him out. Meanwhile, Doyle crashes into Baki's classroom and kicks him into the ceiling after feigning weakness. Baki flees his classroom, not wanting to cause a commotion or reveal his true ability to his classmates. He takes cover behind a building, narrowly avoiding a sickle thrown by Yanagi the poisoner. Yanagi starts twirling two sickles at breakneck speed, and he can barely keep up. Yanagi acknowledges his ability, and after approaching close range, Shibukawa calls Yanagi's attention, tossing a pot of water on him. Yanagi is surprised to find it cold after expecting it to be scalding hot, Shibukawa's sick joke. Yanagi slashes Shibukawa with a hidden Indian weapon, a tiger's claw. Shibukawa and Baki go 2-on-1 on Yanagi and initially pummeled him, a true tag team menace. After escaping Shibukawa's full Nelson, Yanagi leaps away and prepares his true stance, which frightens Baki. Yanagi asks him what the strongest poison in the world is, but neither he nor Shibukawa knows. He then abruptly closes the distance by placing his palm over Baki's mouth, causing him to collapse. Yanagi flees as the cops approach. As Baki regains consciousness, Shibukawa remarks that he lost, which surprises Baki. Tokugawa laments the fact that, with the exception of Hanayama, they all lost their initial brawls with death row inmates. Baki gets up to leave, but Dorian walks in with a bucket of gasoline. Katsumi appears behind him, spilling gasoline all over the American, before he can do anything. Katsumi thanks him for showing him what a true fight is like, which has changed his fighting philosophy. He sets fire to Dorian and discusses the future of Shinshinkai with Doppa, who believes that weapons are unnecessary in karate. Dorian recovers and prepares to fight, but his plans are thwarted by the arrival of Kato Katsumi's master. He cuts off Dorian's ear with a nylon fishing wire. Katsumi observes that the unwavering desire to win at any cost should be the goal of Shinshinkai. Doppa decides to teach them a lesson and attacks Dorian, shocking everyone because striking a defeated opponent is dishonorable even for Doppa. Dorian, on the other hand, was undefeated because he had secretly wrapped his signature metal wire around Katsumi and Kato, threatening to destroy them. Doppa uses his bare hands to cut the wire and humbles his Shinshinkai students, saying, "Train until your very hands become lethal blades, and you will never need a weapon." Dorian regurgitates a hand grenade, which explodes in the room and allows him to flee. He flees into the city, sliding down a manhole to his underground base, which he used during World War II. Kato pursues Dorian, expecting him to be a simple target, but Dorian reveals that he was merely concealing his true abilities. He covers his hands in grease and broken glass, a gangster's trademark during the Al Capone era. Kato notices a cold sweat forming on his brow as he realizes he has bit off more than he can chew. Kato begins to unleash a flurry of blows, but Dorian suddenly claps, catching him off guard, but dismisses it as a bluff. He continues his flurry and triumphs, but it is revealed that it was all hypnosis induced by Dorian's clap. Kato launches a kamikaze attack, but it is ineffective. Dorian wraps his metal string around Kato's neck, and the young Shinshinkai is nearly killed as he silently apologizes to Doppo. The Shinshinkai school is outraged when Ritsu discovers Kato's unconscious body hidden inside a sandbag. Katsumi issues a notice to all Shinshinkai members across the country to target Dorian after reciting Kato's injuries to his dojo. A Shinshinkai disciple who declares that he doesn't care if he dies today. Dorian runs to a roller coaster with Pseudo hot on his tail after an initial skirmish. Dorian asks Pseudo if he meant what he said about not caring if he died. Dorian is initially unable to fight back as the two fight on a running roller coaster. He assumes, based on his training, that Sanchez is standing steadily despite being inside a moving vehicle. He is able to return fire, but Dorian throws him out of the car, sending them both to the ground. Pseudo is taken aback by his opponent's recklessness, and they collide with the pavement. However, only Dorian recovers after breaking his fall with his metal strings, while Pseudo falls unconscious. Ritsu approaches Dorian, whom he now recognizes as a fellow Kale, shocking Katsumi. Ritsu refuses to fight Dorian because he respects the rules of their temple. Instead, Katsumi advances, but Doppa stops him, stating that he still owes him money. He strips down to his trunks, which he famously wore when he killed a Siberian tiger with his bare hands. Doppa launches an offensive, striking Dorian at critical points. To everyone's surprise, he uses his left fist, which has miraculously healed thanks to the healing power of medicine. A doctor worked for one agonizing night to restore his hand's use. Dorian, recognizing him as a karate master, offers to fight with his own Chinese kenpo. The two engage in a high-level exchange that captivates the onlookers, Katsumi and Ritsu. Doppa strikes Dorian with the Bodhisattva fist, causing him to regurgitate an acid-filled bottle. Meanwhile, Baki is out on another date with Kazue. Dorian and Do fight pose heats up, and the two appear evenly matched. When Dorian says that a karate master could never beat him, Doppa sees it as a challenge. Doppa retaliates against Dorian, beating him to a pulp, but it is all an illusion created by another of Dorian's hypnosis techniques, and Katsumi is horrified. Dorian goes in for the kill, but to everyone's surprise, Doppa parries his blow and returns fire. Ritsu tries to break the hypnosis, but nothing happens. Despite being under the spell, Doppa dominates Dorian. Dorian is overjoyed that the man he is fighting, revered in Japan as the god of war, might be able to grant him the victory he craves. Doppa assaults Dorian, his sacred fist destroying his ribs and his kicks destroying his legs. Dorian begins to bleed and has no way of responding to the onslaught. Doppa prepares his final blow to terrorize Dorian. However, it will be Kato, who was brought out of the hospital despite his doctor's protests, who will deliver it. Kato miraculously rises from his wheelchair, and as he prepares to deliver the final blow, Dorian is overcome by fear and surrenders. Doctors discover a strange implant inside Dorian's hand and suspect it is some kind of explosive. Dorian, who was only acting scared, escapes from the hospital. When Dopa returns home, he finds it completely demolished, and his wife is nowhere to be found. When he sees the metal wire on the ground, he becomes enraged, realizing it was Dorian's fault. Dorian suddenly appears from a blind spot and detonates the explosive in his hand, destroying his hand but critically injuring Dopa. When Baki and Kazue arrive close to their house, they both secretly want to continue their date in Baki's room, but neither of them can muster the courage to say so. They kiss, and Kazue is the first to leave. Dorian later runs into Ritsu on the street. He attacks Ratsu, but he is defeated due to both physical and mental injuries. They transport him in an ambulance that is guarded by several police officers as well as Ritsu. Meanwhile, waiting for Baki, Kazue hears a strange noise, and Sikorsky pounces on her, threatening to kill her and her mother if she makes a sound. Kazue puts her trust in Baki and screams, and he arrives just in time to hit Sikorsky. He brutally headbutts him and throws him out of the house in rage, intending to settle things quickly, but discovers that he has returned inside to kidnap Kazue. Sonoda visits Olive at the Arizona State Prison. He is astounded to learn that an inmate lives in opulent surroundings. They fly to a hostage situation that is still ongoing, and as Olivia enters the building, he meets former NYPD officer Jeff, whom he brutally beat decades ago. Jeff seeks vengeance by firing several shotgun rounds at Oliva, but the man is apparently bulletproof, as the slugs pop right out of him. Instead, he draws a katana and stabs him, but his entire heart is encased in a metal plate. Olivia becomes bored with Jeff and punches him out of the building, much to the surprise of the officers around her, bringing the anime to a close.
How was the video? We hope it was good. If so, please check these videos. Also, please comment down your thoughts and your suggestions for future videos. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing now to show the support to our channel. We hope to see you soon with another video right in this channel. Have a nice day.